From the grind to the glory, one man's journey proves that heart, hustle, and determination change the game. This is Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr., where adversity is met head-on and champions are made. Here's George.
Welcome to Catch as Catch Can. I'm George Tinsley Sr., former professional athlete, entrepreneur, author, and your host. This is a space where we sit down with leaders who face real challenges, learned real lessons, and kept moving forward.
Turning obstacles into opportunity.
Joining me today is Ricky Sapp, the founder and CEO of the Ricky Sapp Foundation, dedicated to inspiring youth to dream big, live big. A former Clemson standout and a 5-year NFL veteran with the Eagles and the Jets, he is now an author, speaker, and podcast host, empowering the next generation with leadership, resilience, and purpose. Welcome, Ricky. Ricky, it's an honor to have you. Ricky, it's an honor to have you on the show, young man. See all that red back there and those claws on that helmet, man. So great history that you have there, your resume. And so today we just want to start off and tell us about what you're doing today, presently.
Well, first, Mr. George, I want to say thank you for having me on the show. It's truly a pleasure. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So today, what I'm doing is I do motivational speaking, and my audience is the youth. So I travel to schools and speak. I also have a podcast, which is called Talk to Me Tuesday. I do it every Tuesday live. I do it on the not so popular social media platform. I do it on Facebook live, and I've written 3 children's books. My 3rd book just came out, and it's called Ricky Takes Speech Classes. I also have my own nonprofit foundation. It's called the Ricky Sapp Foundation, and I'm a sports commentator over here at Coastal Carolina football. So my main thing right now, though, is I travel and I speak. I do adults as well, but my main audience is kids. I'm all about the kids.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you're focusing on speech. Is that correct?
Yeah. Motivational speaking. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Motivational speaking. Okay.
Yeah.
As a whole.
Well, I said it wrong, actually. The dancing motivational speaker. So whenever I go speak to kids, I take a boom box. I don't know if you know or not, but the boom box are back in style. So
okay.
I take this boom box to schools and I dance with the kids. And after I dance with them, I pour into them. So I'm the dancing motivational speaker.
Oh, very, very interesting. That's unique. So dancing, is there you dance latest music? Or you go back old school with the boombox? Or are you on the floor doing the twirl? What?
Man, so I play all music, but of course, when I'm going into schools, I'm gonna just tell you guys the truth, man. I will text my kids and be like, "Hey, what's the latest music?" Okay. You know what I'm saying? So okay. I'm one of those speakers. I love to stand at the front door and greet the kids. You know, so when they coming in, I got my boombox blasting music. And I'm playing all kinds of music. You know, I'm playing their music, but I'm also playing old school music as well, because I got teachers in there as well. You know, so I want to make sure, you know, I'm playing music for everybody. So as they come in, I'm playing music, and then once I get started and get introduced, my first thing I say is look, I'm the dance and motivation speaker. Is there anybody in here that can dance? And then normally I have a dance battle, and I haven't won one dance battle yet, but that's normally how it works.
Yeah. So Ricky, you're working with the school system. Am I correct there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so does this program have to be approved by the? Is this high school? College? What level?
So I try to focus on 3rd to about 8th grade is where I try to focus on, but I do all ages, man. I go from 1st grade all the way to college kids. As you can see right there, I'm speaking to college athletes right there.
Right. So I'm trying to understand the proof. So so that people that might be interested in getting you to come into their particular program, is there a process that you have to go through to be approved to go into the school, into a certain part of the school, gymnasium, or you're doing the whole class, a class, or you're doing the assembly program? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the first process is you go on there and you request to have a 30-minute conversation with my executive assistant, and you let her know what kind of event you're planning to have, and then after that we'll go from there. I love to do the whole school, but some schools, they want to break it up. So most times, if they have an auditorium or a gym, I'll go in the gym and I'll speak to. Normally I do 2 or 3 groups, and I'll speak to those 3 groups, and then I don't leave schools unless I'm done with everything. Every school I go to, I always tell them, I say, look, don't let me leave until you have gotten every bit of energy out of me. So that's the process. You go to my website, reach out, and get booked. I have several different speeches, but I got one main message for kids that I give to kids.
Tell us about that message.
My message to kids is that they have the power and authority to help change the world and make it a better place than what it already is. There's 3 words that I give them that they can implement that power and authority. The first word is lead. I tell them that we don't need no more followers. I know social media is so good to get on your phone and see you have followers, but the first word is lead. The second word is fearless. Do the right thing even when it's not the cool thing. And then the last one is 2 words. My daughter told me this. I used to say 1 word, but my daughter said it's 2 words. The last one is dream big. I tell them, don't ever let a small mind convince you that your dreams are too big. So my main message to this generation of kids is that they have the power and authority to help change this world and make it a better place than what it already is by using those 3 words. That's the main message.
Okay. And as you go through your program, Ricky, you say you start off with the dancing and getting them started, then you get into your message. Are you allowing you're allowing Q&A during the presentation, or you do that at the end?
I do a Q&A at the end, but while I'm speaking, I'm the type of speaker. I'm very passionate and energetic, but I love to engage with the crowd. And especially working with kids, you have to keep them engaged. So as I'm talking and giving my speech, I'm also asking them questions. But after I'm done speaking, that's when I give them the opportunity to ask questions, because the young kids, they're trying to ask questions while I'm speaking. So I have to, let them know, like, hey, look, we'll do a Q&A after I'm done speaking.
Yeah. Do you find, Ricky, as you're and we're looking at here live, some of your interaction, do you find the kids know who Ricky Sapp is? Do they follow your playing days, or is how's that connection working?
Well, especially being in South Carolina and me being from South Carolina, a lot of kids kind of have an idea of who I am, but especially the older kids. But when I walk in and they see me, they kind of already know, like, man, you play football, you played at Clemson, so they kind of have an idea, which, these young bucks, they don't really know me too much.
Yeah. Well, it always amazes me that I'm up there in years, and when I go and speak to kids like you, I usually kind of take a basketball with me or something. That I even taken Shaquille O'Neal's shoes sometimes, and the first thing, did you play with Michael Jordan? Did you play? They don't naturally bridge that gap, but they're excited because you're an athlete, and so you have a great opening there to be able to reach them. So that's kind of exciting. Take us back to Ricky Sapp's beginning. How you grew up. Tell us a little bit about your past.
Man, I grew up in Bamberg, South Carolina, and for all of you that's listening, there's 50 states, but there's actually 51 states because Bamberg is the 51st state. That's how big we think of ourselves. But I grew up in I grew up in a small city called Bamberg. It's here in South Carolina, and I grew up with my mom and dad. I have an older sister and a younger sister and brother that's twins. And for me, I was the middle child, so I didn't get all the attention that I wanted to get. So for me, I went to school looking for attention and got in trouble, but also playing sports was kind of was kind of my outlet. So I got into playing sports. My mom, she drove me by South Carolina State University Bulldogs football stadium one day when I was about 9. And when I saw the stadium, I was like, Mom, what the heck is that?
Mhm.
And in that moment, when she told me what it was, in that moment was when I started to dream big. In that moment was when I started to believe that I can go play in the NFL. And I told my mom and dad, I said, you know what? I'm gonna go play in the NFL as a young kid. And as I started going through school and playing football, I was super talented. And teachers and coaches would tell me that. It was like, man, you got such an amazing gift. But I was getting in trouble, because I was seeking that attention. And football became my identity. And football eventually became my attention as well. Football became the three things that every human being needs: love, energy, and attention. So um, I get in high school. Well, in middle school, I got kicked out of school in 8th grade. I gotta say that part. I got kicked out of school in 8th grade, and the only way I made it to high school was the principal said, "Look, I still believe in you. You have a lot of potential. So I'm going to put you in summer school so you can go to the high school." I get to the high school, man, and when I got to the high school, I got surrounded by so many amazing people: my coaches, my teachers, my godmother that I met, and my family members that I already had, and I had nowhere to run. And that's when I learned that it takes a village to raise kids. So I end up becoming the number one player in the state of South Carolina, a 5-star recruit, and then I picked to go play at the best college in the world, Clemson University. And then after that, man, my childhood dream became true in 2010. I think now, what, 15 years ago now, on this day 15 years ago, my childhood dream came true.
So let's go back into high school, middle school, and so forth.
Mhm.
You recognized as a good athlete. How were you doing in the classroom studies, and what triggered you to not only the sports part but also the academic part, bringing those two together because they don't always match during
Mhm.
that particular early period. And as you mentioned, you were kind of seeking attention as well, and had gotten in trouble, but you've had turned that around. What was there a magical point there that happened in the classroom as well as on the field?
Well, this is so good. This is a really good question. I was seeking that attention, and when I found that attention by getting in trouble,
Hmm.
what I did then was I allowed myself to do the very minimum, and I allowed my friends to think that I couldn't do the work. I allowed them to think that I was the dumb one. But really and truly, I could make A's and B's. I really could. And teachers know. They know when kids can what kids are capable of. So I allowed myself to do the very minimum all the way up until I got to high school. And that's
Hmm.
when when the switch kind of came, because my coaches were telling me, it was like, look, man, you have an amazing opportunity in front of you, but if you don't get your grades right,
Right.
you're not gonna be able to go play college football. So that's when the switch came. That's when I started to take advantage of, asking for help and applying myself and doing the work.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so many athletes, youngsters that are in high school, that kind of lose the understanding of how important the education is, and for a guy like you to come back in
Mhm.
and let them know that what someday this career comes to an end, and you have to have a fallback. position to fall back on, which is your education, and also those people that you meet along the way that are good, that are supporters or influencers along that route. But did you find that to be some of your message?
You know what's so true, Mr. George, is that, man, this is man. You hear your coaches say that your education will outlast everything.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard your coaches say that, eventually you won't be able to play the sport. You'll have amazing relationships, but eventually you won't be able to play for a long time. As I'm sitting here right now talking to you, man, I've been blessed, man. I got all my jerseys and all these awards and all that good things, but this is what I tell kids. And because, everywhere I go, you already know, every kid wants to play professional sports.
Right.
But this is what I tell them. I said, at my house right now, I have awards and jerseys and all these amazing things. And then I asked them this question. I said, what do you think is the best thing that I have that's hanging up on my wall? A lot of them say, oh, your jersey, oh, your awards. I say my Clemson degree.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most important thing that I have here, man. And I learned that later in my career. That my coaches, what they said is true, man. Your education will take you farther than playing sports. And something my mom said when we was young as well. She said, being respectful, being kind. She said that will always get you into rooms that others can't get into.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things kind of stuck with me. And I learned later in life that, man, the most important thing is education, man. It's going to outlast everything.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah. And you were lucky to have both parents. Not lucky. You were in a situation where you had both parents
Yeah.
there at home, and a lot of athletes don't have both parents. They have one or have the other that spurs them on, and brothers and sisters and so forth. So you graduate from high school, and you go to the greatest football school, the greatest college in America, in the world, and start your career there. Did you at that time think you were number one player coming out of in the state and going to college right there in that same state? How did you feel about your success moving forward at Clemson?
It was amazing to get there and see so many other guys that was talented as well.
Right.
But yeah, that was amazing. But I gained my confidence by, when I got on the field, I was able to, play with them. I was able to keep up with the speed of the game. So I was blessed to go to an amazing college where, I had great coaches. I had great supporting cast with the study hall people as well. And then I had great teammates. I will say this to you, Mr. George, man. I had a great career at Clemson, but there's a lot that I left on the table and on the field because I was so talented coming out of high school that what I learned was eventually hard work would beat talent.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell kids, I say, man, there's two types of pains in life: the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. And I say, still to this day, I kind of regret that I didn't put in just a little bit more work, at Clemson. But I get to Clemson and had a great career and was blessed to be able to play in front of those amazing fans at Clemson.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And you become a senior. You graduate from Clemson, and you're looking at a pro career. You get drafted by Philadelphia.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Right? Tell us about all that. How that all unfolded for you.
Well, I don't know if I should say this right here, but I'm gonna say this.
Okay.
The Eagles drafted me in 2010, man, and everybody knows that the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys is one of the biggest rivals in NFL history. I'm a Cowboy fan. I am a Dallas Cowboy fan, and
Okay.
my friends give me my my friends give me a hard time. They're like, how in the world can you cheer for the Cowboys when the Eagles gave you your childhood dream? But yeah, I got drafted in 2010 to the Eagles. Andy Reid was there, and he gave me the opportunity. And then what ended up happening was I started having injuries. I tore my ACL at the end of my junior year at Clemson, and then I came back, played my senior year. But then I get to the NFL and started having some injury issues. So I leave Philly after my second year, and I go to the Jets, and I play for the Jets for about 3 years with Rex Ryan. And even there, I was, kind of struggling with some injuries and just having a hard time staying healthy. And then eventually after that, I finished my career down playing for the Houston Texans.
Mhm. During your period, what position did you play?
So I played defense. I played defensive end, outside linebacker. Yeah.
Defensive end, outside linebacker. Okay, which
Yeah.
Clemson's known for putting out some pretty
Oh
top-rated
yeah.
guys down on that
Oh,
defensive side.
oh
Yeah,
yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So you're when you're in Philly and the big lights and playing before the big crowd, playing in NFL and so forth.
Mm.
How was your mindset on the field, off the field, with respect to future understanding that in the football arena there's a high risk of getting hurt. Did you start planning for the days after football, or did that come later?
No, I thought like every other kid that I was going to play for 15 years, like Tom
Okay.
Brady being and all those guys.
Uh,
I did not. It's crazy. I didn't think about life after football.
mhm,
Football was who I was. It was my identity. So
mhm,
I went into it thinking like, man, okay, I'm going to play this for a long time, and then I'm
mhm,
gonna still off into the sunset. So that was kind of my mindset going into it. It wasn't until later on in my career where I started to understand that I needed to look at the older guys and learn from them on how to be a professional athlete,
mhm,
because it's a job,
mhm,
and I always tell kids that I say, man, I mean, you're playing a kid sport, you're playing football, but it's a job and you have to learn how to be a professional. So later in my career is when I started to learn that. And then I started to hear guys talking about, man, life after football. But for me, I learned the hard way
mhm,
as far as what I was going to do after football was over, because my career
mhm,
ended when I didn't think it was going to end.
mhm. Did you have mentors on the team, that guys that helped you when you first started playing, or that developed later on down the line?
Man, in Philly, right away, I had a lot of guys that were mentors. One guy in particular, and he kicked my behind up and down the field when I was a rookie. But Jason Peters, man, the left tackle for the Eagles, who I think he'll probably end up being a Hall of Famer. He was a guy that kind of took a liking to me early, and he saw the talent in me, and he was kind of a mentor right away with just telling me things like, hey man, you should do this, you should try this, and just kind of encouraging me. I can remember him, my first preseason game, my first game ever in the NFL in the preseason. I can remember him calling me to the side and saying, hey, look, go out there, play ball, do your thing, and don't think as much. And then of
Mhm,
course, when I got to the Jets and Texans, man, I had incredible mentors, man. Kevin Pace, Antonio Cromartie, who's one of the guys that told me, man, use the facility as your playground. This is your playground. Use it. Take care of
mhm,
your body. Work, do extra work, do all those good things. And then playing with JJ Watt, man. I mean, that was just unbelievable to see his work ethic and see how he did things.
Mhm. And as you look back on your career, and with the teams that you played with, and you look at things that you regret, was there any things you regret that you could have done then, from the standpoint of training, from the standpoint of anything that kind of stands out to you today?
I think two things. I think one is I could have worked harder with
Mhm.
developing my talent. God blessed me to be super talented. I was tall, I was fast, quick, but I think I could have did a better job with working a little harder. The second
Mhm.
thing, the second thing I would say is I regret not having a backup plan earlier and
Mhm.
not understanding that football wasn't my identity.
Mhm.
And another thing was I should have been taking that time to learn about money and to learn
Mhm.
about, you know, how can I make it work for myself? They say scared money don't make no money. I had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things with money when I was in the NFL, but I always told my financial advisor, I was like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm good. So those are the two things that I regret.
Mhm. A lot of people don't realize how there's levels within professional sports where you have the guys who are making the super money, and the guys are making just a little bit of money, if you will, a lot to the public, but that where they're trying to keep up with the Joneses, where one guy is trying to keep up with another guy that's making three times as much salary, and rather than putting their money away for a nest egg, or as you mentioned, investing in things that will benefit them after their playing days. Did you see a lot of that happening during your playing time, in the pros?
Yeah, yeah, definitely saw a lot of that, man. One thing that I will say is that we could have avoided a lot of different things when it came to money if we would just have had conversations in the locker room. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times, a lot of guys wasn't willing to talk about some losses that they took from things they did with money. But I saw, the young guys like me that was making, this money, and then I saw the guys that was making this money. Well, the guys that was making this money, I saw that they was trying to keep up with the guys that was making this money. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
and you see it every day. And the reason they was doing it was because they knew that every Tuesday I was getting another paycheck. So they was
Mm-hmm.
trying to so they was spending that money knowing that more money was coming. And I saw that. I saw that in every locker room I was in. And that's why you hear a lot of stories about how a lot of athletes, man, they go broke fast because they spend that money. The NFL is one of the only sports that we get the most money in a short amount of time. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have guys that spending that every week,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the year, you have nothing.
Yeah. Speaking of that, during the days that you were playing with the different teams, did you spend the summer, the off season in those cities, getting involved with the community, doing things that would help you after the career was over? How did you approach that in the different cities that you played in, or did you go back to South Carolina?
I did not. And I back then I didn't know, you know.
Hmm.
And if you give me time later, I would love to share that story on how, God revealed to me who I was and everything. But in the off season, I would go back to Clemson and train. For the combine, I trained down actually in Boca Raton in Fort Lauderdale. So I went back there a couple times, but for the most part, I went back to Clemson and trained in Clemson during the off season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, let's take that moment and dive into faith and some of that part of your life and how that you was affected there. You said you wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Well, first I'll tell you this: my mom and my mom's mother, we grew up in a Baptist church, so I
Not
started
just
with
Baptist church, but Black Baptist church.
oh oh man, a
Yeah.
Black Baptist church in the South, which
Yeah.
means that we was in church for 2 hours and some change. So
Yeah.
we was in church for a long time. So my faith started earlier, but I didn't really truly start my relationship with God until in 2015. I'm playing with the Houston Texans, and we go down to play against the Dallas Cowboys.
Mhm.
And they had just opened up the new stadium. I think the AT&T Stadium was maybe a year old or 2 years old. But we go down to play the Texans. I'm laying down in the left corner of the end zone, and I'm showing my mom a video of the stadium. I'm like, man, this stadium is amazing. It's beautiful. I start playing the game, and I'm having one of the best games of my career of the season. We come out after halftime, and I'm on the kickoff team. I sprint down, I dodge a guy, and I go to the right. As soon as I go to the right, a pop goes into my left hamstring. I feel a pop in my left hamstring. I still sprint down, and on the opposite side of the field, I make the tackle. I pop up, jog to the sideline. Mike Vrabel, who's the head coach now for the Patriots, he was my coach then at the time, my linebacker coach. We locked eyes, and I could tell that he knew that something was seriously wrong, but I can also kind of feel that he felt sorry for me because he knew I was fighting to stay healthy to play in the NFL and live my and live my childhood dream. I get on the sideline and they say, look, you got to pull 2 hammy, and they give you a 1 to a 3. So a 2 is severe. So from that point on, I end up going back to Myrtle Beach here with the mindset of, okay, I'm go play in the NFL again. I just got to get healthy. And what ended up happening was I end up going to I am going to speak to this high school called North Myrtle Beach High School. Never did motivational speaking before, but this guy, he saw me in the gym with my cousin DeQuan Bowers, and he said, "Hey, look, come and speak to our football team at North Myrtle Beach High School." I go and speak, didn't think nothing of it. The coaches was like, "Man, that was a great speech. The kids love it. They got your quotes on the wall, but we think that you should come be a volunteer coach." And I'm like, "Man, no, I'm not no volunteer coach." So as time goes by, it's the summertime, and now training camp is starting in the NFL. I don't have an NFL contract.
Mhm.
So depression and anxiety is what I start to feel, and embarrassment, because all my life football was who I was. It was my identity. So this guy, his name is Nate Landy. He texts me again and he says, "Look, man, we really think you should come be a volunteer coach." So during this time, I was only talking to 3 people: my agent, my financial advisor, and one of my best friends, Marlena. My other friends and family members, I wasn't talking to because I was embarrassed, man. I didn't have an NFL contract, wasn't playing in the NFL, so I was talking to 3 people. Well, Marlena said, she said, "Look, why don't you go do it, because maybe it'll take your mind off of the fact that you're not playing in the NFL right now." I go to this high school at North Myrtle Beach High School, and at this school was where God revealed to me that your identity is tied to me, and your purpose is to encourage kids. And when I tell you, when I realized that at this school, it was the best feeling, best feeling I've ever felt. I was a volunteer coach for the football team. Let me say that. And as I started doing it, I felt love, energy, and passion. And I was going crazy, man, seeing these kids. But I also hated it at the moment because football was who I was.
Right.
And I can remember telling Marlena, like, man, when I'm around these kids, I feel something, and I hate it because I don't want to like them. I don't want to love them. So what ended up happening was I got asked to be an assistant JV basketball coach. And one night, me and the head coach were talking to two of the players, and the player in front of me was the best player on the team. And he said, "Coach, man, why are you so hard on me, man? Why are you always getting on me?" And I look at this kid and I said, "Man, I love you, man. I love you." And that was when God said, "That's your purpose,
Mhm.
and that's your identity." And that's when I figured out that my purpose was to encourage this generation and to travel the world and give them a message.
Yeah, that's awesome, Ricky. And I think that a lot of a lot of these athletes today need that kind of inspiration, guidance, and people who have lived that in that particular sport or sports, professional in particular, that can give them that kind of feedback, real world feedback, because they've actually lived it and know what's ahead of these youngsters. Because each one of them, like you, when you were coming out, you were number one in the state, number one, player, and so forth. And you think you got it all together, but there's so much out there, as you mentioned, that you leave on the table.
Oh
As you
yeah.
look back, yeah. One of the questions I see popping up on the live show is just wanted to know a little bit more about financial literacy and how those players are. Let me just take that question and then in the NBA we have the Players Association. I'm sure you have the same thing, some association in the NFL. Was there any resources available to professional athletes to help guide them along the line of how to handle their money during that time?
Back then it was, but it was one of those things. It was one of those things like, hey, we have these resources, but it wasn't something that they really um, broadcasted a lot. They talked about a lot. Now,
Mm-hmm.
towards as my career got going, they started to push it more and more and more. They started to say, "Look, financial literacy, financial literacy." So it wasn't something that a lot of people talked about, back then, and we had the resources, but the NFL during that time, they didn't do a great job of letting us know, like, hey, you got this resource. We can help you. We can guide you. As opposed to now, I'm happy to see that they really do an amazing job with pushing that and letting even the former guys know that they have some financial literacy opportunities for us to learn.
Hmm. So you have the league, you have the ownership, and also you have the Players Association. I know back when I was playing and involved with some of the associations, that there was sometimes more than one that was out there, but it was up to you to get yourself engaged
Mhm.
in those. Is it the same way today for professional athletes? Are you still involved with the two questions there? Are you still involved with former players that played the game? You all still
Yeah,
have it? Okay.
yeah, I am, and well, I will say this: when I stopped playing, I wasn't involved because I was so
Mhm.
down and out, and just didn't want to be a part of anything. But I got back into it, and yeah, I am. I'm a part of the Former Players Association, and I'm always checking. They do a great job, man, with sending out so many emails and letters. And now what they do is they give you your own person who you can literally call
Right.
when you have questions about certain things. So they do a really good job of that. So
Right.
I am a part of the Former Players Association. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And going back and looking at some of the questions that are coming up, and in my own life, I've been very fortunate to coach uh, players and also both in the high school level and AAU, if you will. and see those kids go on to do great things, like Tracy McGrady. Coach Tim was he was a 9-year-old playing basketball here locally, and Daryl Griffith, who is one of the greatest players to ever come out of Kentucky, coached him. And how those they look back, and when I run into them, talk to them, they talk about the influence of that time. And so I'm sure that as you're going through from school to school, there'll be how long have you been out of the sport, out of pro?
My last year was 2015, so it's been a while.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, it's been a while. The period where you've been working and motivating youngsters out there, and I'm sure that
yeah,
some of the kids you first started with are in college and may have even
yeah.
gone on. Yeah, yeah. So how does that interaction go when you see those kids and talk to them?
Man, it's oh man, how can I explain it? It's an amazing feeling to have conversation with kids that I've coached and that kids that I've worked with.
Hmm.
When I go speak to kids, the one thing I hate is that I may never see those kids again. But I always tell them, I said, listen to me. You guys are stuck with me for life. And I always give them all of my social media. And I said, listen, if you ever have a question, you reach out to me.
Hmm.
I coach high school football, and that was a while ago. And now, all those kids are grown and married, and I have conversations with them, and when they say things like, man, coach, man, you really helped me, and you really did this. It's an amazing feeling, but my mind, honestly, my mind goes right to God, because I know that my purpose for being here is for that reason. Is
Hmm.
to encourage them and to help them become the best human being they can be,
Hmm.
so they can shine their light. So that's how I think about it, man. When a kid reach out to me and say things like that, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about your foundation
Mm.
and what you do, what your goals are, and also we have some representatives out there that may want to make some contributions to your foundation to help you along with what you're doing.
Oh, great! Press the donate button. But I started, so I have my own foundation, and it's called the Ricky Sapp Foundation. It's a 501c. Oh, my high school, Bamberg Raiders. Let's go Raiders! They won the championship last year. They went 15-0, man, and they won the championship. That video right there is actually one of my events that I have. That is my football cheerleading camp that I have, and that was the one I had last year, and it's a free camp. And I have an NFL cheerleader that comes. I have former NFL guys come. I have college athletes that come, and we put together this camp. I have state troopers that come. They do a presentation. I have food. I give out trophies, and we have a great time. So the Ricky Sapp Foundation started in 2010, and the motto is dream big, live big.
Hmm.
And what my foundation does is it encourages and enhances the kids. So I have different events throughout the year. My first event, which is coming up on May 30th, is my football cheerleading camp. And um, that camp will be this year, it'll be May 30th at my high school. And it's a free camp. And what we do at this camp is we teach fundamentals. We also have the cheerleaders being taught fundamentals. I have state troopers that come and they do a presentation. They get T-shirt. I give out book bags. I give out Clemson stuff. I give out NFL stuff. This is a great thing too, man. The New York Jets, man. Every year for my camp, they sent 9 boxes of stuff this year. So I give out a
Wow.
bunch. Yeah, man, they do amazing job. So at my camp, I'm big on giving out as much stuff as I can. So I give out a bunch of Clemson gear, New York Jets gear. I have some Texans gear. I get signed footballs and all that good stuff from Clemson. So I have that, and then my next event is I do a Thanksgiving event where I give out turkeys to families in my hometown and in Myrtle Beach. And
Hmm.
then for Christmas, if you just saw it, I dress up as Buddy the Elf, and right there, right there, I
Yeah,
dress
yeah.
I dress up as Buddy the Elf, and I give out gifts to kids in need in Myrtle Beach and in my hometown in Bamberg, and I go around reading my books to kids during that time.
Mhm.
So those are the events that I have with my foundation. And then this year, November 14th, I'm turning 40. So I am having my first I'm having my first gala for my foundation this year. So
Uh-huh.
that's what my foundation is all about, man. Enhancing the kids, encouraging them, and having those events throughout the year. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's exciting. That's exciting. Congratulations on that. And your books. Tell us about your children's books.
Three children books. My first book I wrote. Well, first this you probably heard this as a motivational speaker. When I first got into it, they kept asking me the question like, "Where's your book? Where's your book?" I'm like, "I'm not writing no book. Why would I write a book?" So, um, I finally wrote my first book, and it was called Dream Big, and it tells my story about how I got into playing football and how I became the first person, in my hometown to play the NFL. And then my second book is Ricky's Two Bullies. Now people can't believe this, but I had two bullies when I was young. So that was my second book that I wrote, and it's called Ricky's Two Bullies. And then my third book that I just came out with is called Ricky Tick Speech Classes. So when I grew up, I stuttered and I took speech classes all the way up until I got to middle school. And then God said, "You're going to be a motivational speaker." So that was my third book that I
Mhm.
came out with, and it's on Amazon and it's on my website. So if you guys want to purchase the book, you can grab them right there.
Mhm.
My plan is to write two more books, and right there is Coach Sweeney.
Yeah,
Yeah, giving me a testimony.
yeah, yeah. So, Ricky, you have two things that you just mentioned here with respect to your books. One about bullying,
Mhm.
and two about speeching, about stuttering. Let's kind of flash back real quick because you're a big guy and you've always been, I'm assuming, been larger than most of your other classmates. Being how did this bullying and this speech impediment uh, work either against you, for you, motivating you, for those that are out there that have children that are going through some of this, or relatives that are going through some of this, or other teachers or coaches and they're dealing with, what would you say to them, and how you dealt with it, and suggestions for them?
But first, I would say this is I would say this: kids don't listen to nothing we say. Everything we do, they see it and then they do it.
Mhm.
So this whole bullying issue, I hear a lot of adults say, "Man, we're having a bully issue, we're having a bully issue with kids." Where do you think they get it from? They're not born like that. They had to learn it from somebody. So I always tell adults, I said, the most important conversations happen at the dinner table. The most important things happen when you come home and your kids see you and they see what you do. So it's important that you are showing your kids the right things. I was a young kid and I was 6'4", but I was skinny with a big head, and I was shy and I was quiet. And one of the reasons why was because I knew that if I started talking, I would eventually start stuttering. So that kind of kept me quiet and shy. And eventually I had a bully. And the one thing that I tell people that what I didn't do is I didn't tell anybody. And what happened was I had two bullies. What happened was my older cousin, he was walking through my school playground to get to his school, and he saw it, and he took care of my bully.
Mhm.
My second bully came at a place that people would be surprised, and it was at church.
Mhm.
And now this bully, I think he saw that I was growing really fast, and eventually he left me alone. But what those bullies did to me was I didn't have identity, man. I was afraid, and I couldn't understand why that these kids were bullying me or picking on me, because in my mind I thought that, that we were supposed to love each other, help each other, be kind to each other. And I was trying to do that with these guys, man, even when they was trying to bully me, but it didn't
Mhm.
happen. So when I talk about bullying and I do my bullying presentation, what I tell kids is I say, man, we are not here to bully each other.
Mhm.
We are here to show people what it looks like to be kind. We're here to help each other. We're here to love each other.
Mhm.
And I said, if we can work on being kind to each other, simplest things, man, opening the door, smiling, asking someone if they need help. I think if we do that, I think we'll see the switch. But then I tell adults, I say, man, I'm just gonna be honest with you, Mr. George. I tell adults, I say, we are not doing a good job of showing these kids what it looks like to work together.
Mhm.
Because when you look out right now at adults, the only thing that we do is we point the finger and blame each other, and we bully each other.
Mhm.
Who do you think is looking at that?
Mhm.
So when I go into schools and talk about bullying, that's some of the things that I talk about.
So the kid that's being bullied, what advice would you have for that kid?
I would tell that kid to speak up and tell somebody, but
Mhm.
I would also tell that kid to understand that it's not them.
Mhm.
The person that's doing the bullying, they're going through something and they don't know how to express it.
Right.
So they're taking it out on them. So
Mhm.
if there's a kid that's listening to this, I want you to know that it's not you. You're not doing anything wrong.
Mhm.
You are worthy and you are loved. But I encourage you to speak up and tell somebody and stand up and stand up.
Mhm. Okay. And the stuttering,
My
the kid.
stuttering, man, yeah. My my stuttering what it was is I would I would think something and then I would talk too fast and then I would get stuck. And
Mhm.
my mother, man, God bless my mother. My mom one day she told me, she said, baby, take a deep breath. And she said, now say what you have to say. That really, really helped me as I got older. And then I had a really good speech teacher. And then I end up getting to Clemson University, and I took public speaking, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But I can remember doing a presentation, and in the back of my mind, I was like, this is not bad. This is not
Mhm.
bad. So eventually, I get out. I'm in the NFL, and I get asked to speak, and I start listening to motivational speakers. And in my mind, what I started saying was, I would say it like this, or I would do it like this. And little by little, that was God saying, I want you to be a motivational speaker. I want you to be
Mhm.
a motivational speaker. So that's kind of how I gained my confidence in being able to speak
Mhm.
in front of people.
What made you decide, given stuttering, what made you decide to take a speech class to overcome that? Was it a coach, or was it you just made that decision yourself?
Man, if it was up to me, I wouldn't have took the class. But the the school the school recognized it as I was young, and they put me in speech. They put me in speech class, and I stayed in speech class all the way until I got in middle school. Yep,
Mhm.
yep,
That's
yep.
great. That's great. I noticed the comments, some of the comments about that, because so many kids are going through these different challenges and they don't know which way to turn,
Mhm.
and sometimes it leads them down the wrong path
Yeah.
to get around that.
Mhm.
So that's great insight.
Yeah.
Okay, your foundation, you're writing books, how many, what's your next book? What do you think is your next in your plans?
My plan is to write 5 books. So right now I'm on 3. My plan is to write 2 more books for kids. I'll get to
Mhm.
you adults later, but my my plan is to write 5 books. I got 3. My next book is going to be called Ricky Loves Nature. I love nature, man. I'm big into hiking and all that good stuff. So that book I'm gonna talk about how nature is so good for my mental health, because today we have that we see a lot of mental health issues and stuff. So my next book is going to be geared towards mental health and how nature is my happiness and my peace. So I plan to write 2 more children's books. My 5th book is going to be a motivational quote book. It's going to be a coloring book where kids can color motivational quotes. And then I plan to start writing some books for adults as well. So I plan to write plenty books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great. Well, Ricky, I tell you, it's been great having you on the program. I'm going to open up and see if any of our listeners have any more questions direct for you. But as we do that, I want to thank you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and hear your path to success and where you are today and what you're doing with children in that in your area and to learn about that 51st state.
Hey, Bamberg is the 51st state, baby. That's what we call it.
Bamberg is close to what?
Orangeburg, South Carolina. It's
Orangeburg.
18.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It's 18 miles from Orangeburg, South Carolina, man. Yep. And one of my good friends, Travis Wilson, man, he came up with it. He was like, man, we the 51st state. So that's what we call ourselves. I want to apologize, man, because I see a lot of people in the comments. I'm so sorry. All of you in the comments, I want to say hello, I love you, and thank you guys for commenting, man. I really appreciate you guys.
So what we'll do here is that we'll follow by connecting our podcast with your podcast, the social media together, and make sure that this podcast, the information for you about your foundation and what you're doing there at Myrtle Beach, that people can stay in touch with you. If there's someone out there that wants to contribute to your foundation, certainly they can do so. Just wish you the best of luck moving forward.
I truly appreciate you, Mr. George. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And there's a donate button.
There it is.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir, and you have a great day. And next time we can take this conversation and go a lot further down the road because it's very interesting.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, man.
Okay.
This has been Catch as Catch Can. The game isn't over. Your success story is just getting started. Head to tinsley.speaks.com for exclusive content, resources, and opportunities. Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr., a production of Live Stream Editors.